Hey everybody, this is Jay Alpert for the first ever Agile Experience podcast. So I'm really excited for you guys to be here and kind of do this exploration of Agile with us. So in this podcast, we're going to be talking about how Agile basically permeates everything in our life, whether it be tech, business, personal life, how we run to the store, how we plan our vacations. Agile is everywhere. So in this podcast, hopefully you guys are going to learn a little bit something about Agile and the Agile methodologies and the guidelines, but also maybe learn something a little bit fun along the way. So I'm really pleased that you guys are here, and hopefully you guys are going to be enjoying this adventure with us. So who am I? I'm Jay. I've been in IT for the past 12 years. Before IT, I was just kind of bouncing around. I've been in the Navy. I've worked retail. I've worked in banking mostly for a couple different big name companies in the United States, and kind of found my way through life and ended up here in IT. So that's kind of become my niche, where I'm currently a Scrum Master for a local company here in Texas. And now I've been in IT for about 12 years, kind of doing a whole bunch of different things, starting off as a software tester. Then I was a business analyst, and then became a PM, and then finally a Scrum Master. So for the last 7 years, I've been kind of bouncing between the PM role and the Scrum Master role. So long story short is I have a lot of experience with using Agile in all of those different facets, and it's really become kind of a groundbreaking new way of thinking when it comes to business. But it's not necessarily all that new anymore. We've been doing it, and it's kind of become the industry standard. If you're not doing Agile, then you're just going to be basically just left behind. So also a little bit about me. I like to work out. I got a family. I've got a kid, wife. Like I said, I live here in Texas. I also dabble with the blues harp a little bit. I'm not going to play anything for you guys in this episode, because definitely don't want to lose you guys as a listener. But who knows? Maybe one of these days I'll pick it up and play a little tune if I'm feeling, feeling like I can actually do something. So let's talk about it. So what is Agile? Agile is the process and the ability to adapt to change. Agile can also be how you move, how you're able to get around things, how you're able to respond to the different changes in your environment. Agile can be where you're adapting to, you had plans for the weekend and that changed. So now you have to adapt. You have to come up with new plans. You know what you basically want to do. You want to spend time with your loved ones, but what are you going to do? So you create a list and you figure out what everybody's going to want to do, and then you're agile. You're changing on the fly. This is basically a grassroots effort that started in business, but we've always been doing it. And it's basically responding to the real world out there, right? So when you clap your hands and your cat jumps and moves out of the way, that's them being agile. So just like the cat, we are going to be agile. We're going to find a way to kind of move and maneuver our ways around. I know a lot of us, we've had different challenges in our life, but Agile has been there to help us through those different changes. I know personally, recently, I had a period of time where I had lost my job and I had to be agile. I had to go and start all over again, find my niche, look around in companies, find what they want, understand what the need was out there, and adapt, right? So then change your resume, change your look, change, what you're saying on your resume, who you are. All of those things are ways of adapting to change. Recently went on vacation. We didn't know what we were going to do, so we planned it out. But some of those plans didn't work out, so we changed again on the fly. Instead of going out to dinner, we stayed at the hotel and ate there. It was perfect. Everybody was happy. So that's all about being agile and allowing Agile to kind of guide you through life. And I think it really helps, especially in this day and age where we're always constantly on the move, always constantly having to adapt to things. We always have our cell phones on us. We always are looking through the internet. We're always getting emails. Agile is key especially when you're in business now. And that's what we're going to start with first, is kind of focusing on Agile in business. But later on, we'll move through and we'll kind of start talking about Agile in your life, Agile in making plans, Agile in everything. So when did Agile get started? Agile basically got started in 2001 by a group of people responding to what they were seeing in the industry at the time. In the industry, they would go through projects that would take 6 months, a year, and at the end, you would end up not really getting what exactly you were thinking that you were going to get. That would be the business looking at that. They realized that there was a lot of gap there, and we needed to be able to move faster and to be able to change as things are moving our way. So this group got together in 2021, or actually it was 2001. I don't know why I said 21. And they got together in a ski resort in Utah, and it was called the Snowbird Lodge. And they came up with the Agile Manifesto, a set of guidelines basically to map out how you should be using these methodologies and these skills in business. So why did they do that? Well, they did that because, like I said, they saw the gap. They saw that we would work on these projects and things would change, schedules would change, the need would change. So then they needed a way to adapt to that change. So they saw Agile as a way of adapting to that change and being better. So when and where did Agile get started? Well, Agile got started around with certain methodologies, but it really started to get traction in 2001, where a group of coworkers got together and they all went out in Utah to a small lodge called Snowbird Lodge, and they decided to come up with a set of guidelines called the Agile Manifesto. So the Agile Manifesto is pretty much what we go by now, especially for IT when it comes to Agile. Why did they do this? Well, they did this because they wanted to meet real world needs, right? They were seeing a problem with the way that we were doing the waterfall method and the way that we were conducting our business. We would wait anywhere from 6 months, a year, 3 years before we actually gave a product over to the business. And a lot of the times the business would change, needs would change, industry would change, focus would change, and by the end they wouldn't have anything that would resemble what the business needed. So they needed a way to kind of address that. So they came up with Agile. And Agile is a grassroots movement for that need, where you can adjust, you can change your approach, you can work a little bit and give the client what they need and then see if that's right on target, and then you work a little bit more and you keep moving forward. So Agile allows us to be able to move forward and be able to give the business what they actually need. Now, Agile actually kind of goes and it permeates everything that we do, and we've been doing this our whole lives, whether we're planning a vacation or a weekend stay that ended up falling through. Well, then we need to use Agile to be able to make up new plans, to be able to adapt to that change. Agile has many different meanings throughout the world and throughout life, but in this context, Agile is how do you adapt to that change and how do you move forward? I know personally, there's lots of times where I needed to change things, whether it be, planning a date with my wife, planning a time out with the kids. Agile was there to be able to adapt to those changes. So it allows everybody to be able to move and flow and be able to adapt to those changes. So with this podcast, we're hoping to kind of dive deep into those things. I'm hoping to have some interviews with some IT people in my past that have been affected, where they may needed to use Agile to pivot. They might have started off in one career and ended up in another career. Or how do they use Agile to start their own businesses? These are some of the things that I think a lot of people forget, that Agile kind of goes throughout all of our lives all the time, kind of like the Force. Not to get too sci-fi on you guys, but I think Agile is something that we all use all the time, and learning about it and talking about it and seeing how that actually affects us is going to bring some interesting conversations to the table and kind of help us understand it a little bit better. So I hope you guys are going to enjoy this podcast. I'm going to try my best to be a good practitioner and a good person to learn from. So I appreciate you guys' time, and I hope to see you guys in the next podcast. Thank you.